Hey everybody, welcome to the virtual Launceston Freelance Festival. I'm Sue Bell and I'm the Festival Director, and it's great to have you join us all online. We would have liked to have obviously held the festival in Launceston this year, but due to circumstances we couldn't. So I want to try and replicate what we would normally have at the festival over 3 days. And one of those is a workshop that we have as a pre-festival introduction to the festival. And I'm pleased to say that we've got award-winning designer Kirsty Mate with us today. She's going to be taking us through sustainability. She's going to be showing us some tips and tricks that we can do around the house. So if you've got anything you are going to throw away, maybe think twice because you might be able to repurpose it. Before I throw over to Kirsty, I just want to do a couple of housekeeping things. Because this is going to be interactive, you can actually use the chat function, and if you're new to Zoom, you'll see the chat function is just down below. So you can type in a question and I will moderate the panel discussion and I will pass those on to Kirsty. But also there will be opportunities for you to actually have your audio working too. So if you hold down your space bar and you actually want to ask a question, you can do that as well. But we have to be a little bit mindful because of the amount of people who might want to hold a space bar down at the same time. So it might be a good idea to actually let me know in the chat first that you'd like to ask Kirsty a direct question or you'd like to talk. So also we have virtual drinks straight away following the sustainability workshop. So that will be a more formal introduction to the festival. So this right now is more of an informal introduction, and so I won't be talking too much about the festival. I'll wait until we go to the virtual drinks. So having said all that, I'm now going to pass it over to Kirsty. But before I do that, actually, I must actually summarize Kirsty's bio. And I'm going to have to look at my notes because Kirsty has such an impressive bio that I actually can't memorize them. So Kirsty has been an educator, consultant, researcher, writer, designer, and artist on all things related to sustainable design. She has over 30 years experience in this area, and she's a pioneer or a sustainability pioneer. She's recently left a full-time academic position at UTAS and started her own business called Rethink, which she'll talk to you a bit about as well. And her artwork explores the transformation of waste materials through the traditional skill of knitting and with the engagement of the community. So I hope I've summarised that correctly, Kirsty.
Thank you.
If I've left something out, please let me know. All right, I'm going to pass over to you.
Thanks very much, and thanks for inviting me to be part of this festival. It's really exciting. So I hope you guys all enjoy it. This is something that I'm really passionate about, and something I've been working on for a number of years. As Sue's pointed out, I've been working in sustainability and design now for over 30 years. And started the first actual Sustainable Design Expo back in Sydney in 1995. So that does date me a little bit here. But today I'm really wanting to, and obviously I've taught sustainability. I've worked with companies and businesses around sustainability and design, and getting businesses to be more responsible with what they're doing, done my own design work, and also been an educator for about 20 years as well in the tertiary industry around sustainability and design. So today, being the start or near the start of Plastic Free July, I thought I would focus mainly on sort of plastic things and what I've been doing in that area. But what I thought I'd start with is a bit of a presentation. So Sue might have to help me with this if this doesn't work,
Certainly.
but hopefully it will. So just to give you a bit of an overview and show you a bit of my work as well, and then we'll get into some making. So that's the fun bit. Okay, so we'll see how we go here.
So this is sharing your screen?
Yeah, so okay. I can't share it at the moment. So.
Yep, okay, I will just give you that access.
Are we right to go?
Not quite. If you just want to talk a little bit about what they're
Okay.
doing while I get the share screen.
Okay. So what I've been working on for a number of years now is working with plastic, mainly single-use plastic and plastic bags, and trying to, what I really like to do is to look at waste and try and reform it so it doesn't look like waste anymore. So when you see it, you go, wow, that's really interesting. I didn't know it was whatever it was. So that's what I've been really trying to do. And that's what really inspires me when I look at materials and products and things that are made from repurposed materials. That's what really inspires me when I don't have any idea where that comes from. So I really like that aspect of looking at repurposed materials.
Okay, you can share your screen now, Kirsty.
Oh, great. Excellent. Thank you. Okay. So, oh dear. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Now, does that mean you could see that little box as well?
Plan, that says plan?
No, that's all right. You can't see me. That's good.
Oh, you, yep. Yes, we can see you at the side, but...
Oh, okay, I'll minimize it. There we go. Okay, sorry, everyone. Okay, here we go. So this is I've called it plan because that's a lot of what I'm going to focus on, which plan actually stands for plastic yarn. But I'm also going to talk about how we can revalue plastic waste, as this is Plastic-Free July. So why are we looking at plastic? Plastic is one of those areas of sustainability and pollution that is a huge problem. It's one of those really wicked problems. In fact, they've now found plastic particles in Antarctica. So plastic is everywhere in the world, and it's going to be one of those really, really difficult problems to actually contain. So that's why I thought I would focus on plastic. So when we create waste, it's actually really wasteful. Whether it's plastic or anything else, we're using valuable resources, or we're wasting valuable resources that we could be reusing or recycling. We're creating a lot of pollution, a lot of toxic pollution, as well as obviously solid waste pollution. And it's just not a good thing to do. Increases landfill, all those sorts of things. So if we start to rethink what waste is, if we really start to think, okay, well, if we just take that verb or that noun out of the actual dictionary, and we actually start to think about the things that we don't use anymore as a resource rather than waste, then we can really start to rethink how we actually use these materials and things that we currently classify as waste. And one of the things that I've been looking at in my research, I've just finished a PhD on sustainability and consumerism. And one of the things that came up with that is this idea of curiosity. When we're actually curious about things, we really start to think about them much more deeply. And so this idea of curiosity, if we can sort of take that idea of curiosity in these materials and products that we currently call waste, I feel that we can really come up with some innovative solutions. So the way that I want to focus the rest of this little presentation is just sort of looking at how various people are addressing this issue of plastic waste. So by no means does this cover everyone. This is more what I could get my hands on quite easily, but I think there are also some really inspiring examples in this. So this is Tanya Splauer-Neyman. She's a Melbourne artist, and she's also been working a lot with plastic bags and waste, and she uses mainly crochet, but she also knits. But the example that's here on the screen I really like, because she's looking at how to repair a ceramic object or a hard object with plastic waste and this form of, you know, slow making or crochet. So I really like the way that she's coupled these two things together to repair this broken form. This is Leanne Rosler and Sarah King. They make super cyclers. They're in Sydney. And what they've been doing is actually getting plastic bags, forming them over a solid object and heating them. And when you take the object away, it forms these really ethereal type plastic objects that are left. So I find them really beautiful. Sophie Carnell is a Tasmanian jeweller, and she has been working with different forms of ocean plastics. So her work uses things on the right-hand side here. You can see she's using fishing line. She's also quite inspired, and a lot of these are using fishing line and other bits of plastic waste in the oceans, but she's also quite inspired by the forms of the oceans themselves. And this middle one here is fishing line, but it's also threaded with these things that sort of look a bit like jellyfish. They're actually eye lenses, so that the single-use lenses. So she gathered them up from friends who use them and made it into this piece of jewellery. Linda Urseg is also a Tasmanian artist, and she also works with oceans. And her work, when you look at it at first, looks like seaweed and the things that you would find, the sort of botrytis that you might, the natural botrytis that you might find in the oceans. But in fact, when you actually get up and close look at it, it's also plastic waste. So so you can see that the intricacy and delicacy of her work, and I like that sort of idea of it looks like something and then you find out it's actually something else. Now I'm going to look at some product designers. Stuart Haygarth is a real favourite of mine. He has been collecting waste, all types of waste, but I'm only showing you the plastic waste examples today, and makes them into these amazing, usually chandeliers, but he's got other work as well into these amazing chandeliers. So this one's called Drop Chandelier. Obviously it looks like a water droplet, but it's all made up of, and you can see in the detail here on the right hand side, it's all made up of the bases of water bottles that he collects and finds. So he's not buying them new and using them. All his work is collected. And this one is called Tide. It's also a three-dimensional spherical form. And all of these are plastic, bits of plastic waste he found while walking along the beaches in the UK. This artist, or designer rather, Liana Cable, she's also an Australian designer, and you can see that she's making bangles and other types of jewellery out of old knitting needles. So these are the old plastic knitting needles. You can see her, she's gathered them all in different colours and so forth, and she makes these bangles but also other types of jewellery out of them. A more current use of plastic by Precious Plastic is by reusing the plastic bottles to form masks for COVID-19, and they've also been 3D printing, so the red part of it there is 3D printed out of plastic waste, such as the bottle tops of plastic bottles. This is also a type of plastic. Some of us will remember cassette tapes that are now obviously redundant as a technology, and Alice Santoro has made a fabric out of it. So she's woven the actual cassette tapes into a fabric, and here you can see one of her first iterations of that into a dress. And what she also found was that she could actually hook this up to an electronic glove. And when you actually rub the glove along the fabric, you actually get sound and noise. So you can put your ear plugs in and listen. It's not, you won't get the music, obviously, but you get sound. This wedding dress is actually made from a former student of mine at the University of Technology, Sydney. She was she and her partner, because there were two of them that made this, were fashion and textile design students at UTS. And I asked the students to make something either from a reused material or a biodegradable material. So they decided to make a wedding dress out of plastic bags. And this entire dress is 100% plastic bags. So there's not a stitch of cotton or any other material in there. The whole thing was made welding joints together and plaiting and making the buttons. You can see that the lace work was obviously done through the welding iron as well. This is a light made from plastic straws. So, so when they're welded together, they form this sort of like a textile, in fact, that can be bent and formed into different shapes, and they've formed it into this particular shape for a lamp. And obviously plastic straws are a real problem in the environment. And lastly, I wanted to have a look at buildings, larger scale. So here we have a travelling museum designed by Atelier Kemp. It obviously needed to be lightweight, and so they decided to build it out of, this is in Europe, and they built it out of beer crates that you find in the Netherlands. And you can probably just make out on the right-hand side there the sort of handholds of the crates. But it was really cheap and easy to build. It was lightweight, so it was really easy to transport. And on the inside, it really looks very translucent, has a really lovely feel about it. Another idea, using plastic bottles to create these sort of igloo type forms, really easily done. They've got some what's called a Tyvek, which is also a recycled plastic material. And you can see this is on the inside, so you can see the bottle caps on the inside. You screw the Tyvek or the material between the bottle cap and the bottle, and after a while, when they're all screwed together, you get this sort of igloo form. I actually tried this with my students. It was a lot of fun. This is a hair salon in Melbourne that did a lot with reusing different materials and things by Fui, who were the designers. But I've put it up here because they actually made some walls out of the old shampoo and conditioner containers, so they were trying to reuse as much as they could. And this one by the University of Stuttgart is made up of 120,000 recycled plastic star shapes to form this interior environment. And obviously it's a space and a room and a building all at the same time. So that's what some other people are working on, and I thought I'd also show you some of my own work and take you through the process of one of my more major projects. So this is what we're going to look at a bit further on in the workshop, is actually knitting a phone cover for your phone made out of plastic bags. And so these are some of the examples of the plastic bags and that I've done. And, you know, you can really start to experiment with the colour, and if you are a knitter, you know, experimenting with the stitches and things just like you would with any other type of wool material. This is then a bigger project that I did, which is obviously a shopping bag all made out of plastic. Bag. So these were the old Coles bag, the grey. The strap handle was actually made out of potato bags and apple bags, I think, from memory. And you can see here I'm starting to experiment with different stitching. So this is using, for the knitters, this is using a bobble stitch, and then on the back it's using a slip stitch. And I just knitted 2 panels and then wrapped the handle around it, and that joined the whole thing together. And I use it regularly, and in fact it's really interesting that once you actually knit the material together, it actually is a lot stronger than it is on its own. I've also been doing some experimenting with heating the plastic. So here I've knitted for the phone cover, just knitted something out of a plastic bag, and then I heated it with an iron. Obviously I had to put some paper in between the plastic and the iron so it didn't melt onto the iron, and it changed it quite radically, and I'll show you the actual sample again a bit later. So you could actually form it and roll it, and I thought that was really interesting how it changed the material. Now this is the project that I want to take you through so you can see my process. It was called The Curtain of Cast-Offs, and it was for an exhibition for a conference in Adelaide in 2015 called the Unmaking Waste Conference. And as part of the conference, what we had to do for the exhibition, if you were chosen for the exhibition, you had to design and make something out of construction waste. So I went dumpster diving to a local construction waste, just a domestic house, and got as much as plastic waste that I could out of the dumpsters, and I came back with these 2 big bags full of waste. Then, of course, it was filthy, so I had to wash it out on our backyard. You could see that it was summer at the time when there's no lawn. And I was really astonished at the types of plastics that came out of it as well. So this plastic that you can see with the writing on it, that was covering the timber that was used for the project. And the other main parts of plastic was covering furniture. And I hung it out on the line to dry, as you do. And I was also, this is the furniture, the type of furniture plastic that I found. And I was really interested to see, you know, please recycle. At the time, there wasn't any way that you could recycle this because the red cycle bins at Coles and Woolworths weren't available. But you quite often see this, that, you know, companies sort of saying that it can be recycled, but if there's no system to actually recycle it, then it just ends up as waste. So after it was all washed and cleaned and everything, that was what was left, and I sort of sorted it into different colours and so forth. And then I had to fashion some knitting needles to make this. What I decided to make was a big screen. And so I got some old electrical conduiting, and these are the nozzles from glue guns, and put them together, and they formed my knitting needles, which were 1.2 metres long, I might add. So they were really big knitting needles. So then I had to cut up all the plastic into plan, which is the plastic yarn, and into the different types of plastic, and work out what I could actually do in the design that I was actually going to make. So you can see my knitting needles here. I had to use a lot of gaffer tape as well to keep them together. So this is my testing, and this is my design. So I decided to use a drop stitch, a waving drop stitch, with adding some of the colour in there, and this was all my rows and so forth, to make my screen, which was going to be 1.2 metres across and 1.5 metres high. And this is me. I'll just play a little bit of these two. This is me knitting them. So I'll just play. So this is in fast motion. You can see the wave pattern starting to form on the actual screen, and you can see the length of the actual needles. Oops. Okay. And now this is real time. It took me about on a quick row, I think that was about 30 minutes. But anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour, it would actually take me to knit each row. So I was working full-time at the university at the time. So to get this done, I was actually up until 3 and 4 in the morning, just trying to get this all done and knitted in time. So I just thought it was interesting for you to see how long this actually took, and it really was quite painful on my shoulders, quite heavy, even though it's plastic. I think it was the length of the actual knitting needles themselves. So this is it complete. Ta-da, finished and then packed off and sent to Adelaide where the conference was. And this is it at the actual conference. These are photos by Steve Wilson, who was the conference photographer, and you can see the different plastics starting to come through in there. And I think they've got another one, close up here. You can see that there's one plastic that's actually used for that sort of ribbing going through, excuse me, and then another plastic for the drop stitching here. And then this is back at the university, and that's it being displayed at the university. And then, this was sort of around December, and I decided to leave the piece in my office at work at UTAS while, I went away over Christmas. When I came back, this had started to happen. And the whole thing has started to deteriorate. And where the drop stitches are along here, that particular plastic was actually designed to deteriorate in sunlight. So it actually formed this really, really fine particle. You can see here on the bottom, powdery-like substance. So even trying to repair it, I couldn't repair it. It was just falling apart. So I just let it fall apart. I just let it hang there and fall apart. And these are some shots of it just coming apart until it just became, again, a pile of rubbish. So there it is, the whole thing back to being waste again. And because of all the really fine particles, I couldn't actually reuse the bits that hadn't fallen apart. We had to actually throw it away, but we did recycle it. We put it in the recycling. By that stage, we had the recycling. That's the really fine powder that you see there. And that's what was left. And when I left UTAS, they asked me to keep it there, but apparently it's now been thrown away, the whole thing. So it doesn't exist anymore. That was the last of it.
That's a tragedy, Kirsty.
Yes, it was. I was devastated when it happened. I was absolutely devastated. But anyway, things are, nothing lasts forever.
True.
So the other thing that I've been doing is public knitting. I'll just go through this really quickly. So just working with the public, sort of setting myself up in shopping centres and showing people how to knit with plastic, any age, young and old. And this is the other project that you might have seen in the introduction to this. Oh no, this is, sorry, not this one, the next one. This was for Junction Art Festival. And this was knitting again in public at the festival, and it was really successful. We were knitting a rug for the homeless people to lie on, to give them some shelter, some, not necessarily warmth, but to get them off the ground if they were sleeping at rough.
Would that plastic deteriorate as well, or is this one?
No, we used the other plastic, the really thick plastic bags, the shopping bags. So that would take a long time before that starts to deteriorate. It will eventually, but it would take a very long time for that to happen. So even the guys were getting into it, which was great to see. They were having a lot of fun. And that was the final thing, because everyone was just knitting a small square. It was sort of a bit of a hodgepodge, and we took it to the City Baptist Church. They look after the homeless here in Launceston, and so they took the plastic bag and gave that to people to use. And then this is the project, Knit One Per One ad infinitum, that you might have seen in the introduction to this. So this was part of an exhibition on was domesticity and women, and so I was looking at this idea of, you know, the slow make and using waste, and you know, the furniture is a very domestic domestic items, and so there's a lot sort of going on here, but anyway, that was all made out of plastic waste. In fact, the white is all from old raincoats, you know, those plastic ponchos that you get, and the flowers and things are all made from generally plastic bags. And just very quickly, these are some other repurposed items that I've been making as part of Rethink. So these are all made out of old sheets and pillow slips and industrial waste. And these are different types of, and these are, what I'm looking at is gift wrapping, because that's a one-use item when you use paper. And also looking at how people can actually engage further with this idea of wrapping. So this is a big long ribbon that when it gets rolled up, it looks like this, and then you wrap it around the object. So it's great for wrapping really odd things like wine bottles. And then a simpler form is a square format form. Again, you know, from old, the purple is an old sheet, I think, if I remember, and same with, these are old pillow slips. This is some found fabric that I had, and then you can wrap presents, and you get different, this is all from the same piece, you get different colors and things coming through the different ways that you can wrap it. And this is just a bigger form of the same thing. You can see the same thing happening there. You get different colors and patterns coming through from one piece of wrap, gift wrap, and obviously you reuse it over and over and over again because it's made out of fabric. And I keep on experimenting with things. So this, I was in the garden the other day and cutting up those or pruning those big grasses, thinking, gosh, I could make something out of this. So I did. So I sat there and wove it together and made a little garden mat for myself out of it. That's it.
Wow, that was a very comprehensive presentation there. Has anybody got any questions? If you have, just put them in the chat. There's some amazing designers. There's some amazing things you can do with plastic. Who would have thought?
Yeah, that's what I think too. Oh, there's so much. There really is a lot out there. So,
and do you see this as a growing kind of movement of reusing plastic, and like, is this something that is taking on?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, absolutely. I think people are really starting to cotton on to, you know, plastic and how we can use plastic, and the different ways that we can use it. You know, it's a material that's going to last forever, and it's a material that you can do a lot of things with, but it has its downsides and its upsides, and I'll talk more about that as we're sort of progressing with the workshop.
Sure. Okay. I haven't got any questions so far, so we can probably head straight into the practical side of things. I think I said at the start we'd have a break at around the 4 o'clock mark, didn't I? So everyone could get up, have a stretch, cup of tea, whatever. So that's still about 20-25 minutes away. So so what do we need for this part of the presentation?
Okay, so this part of the presentation, I'm going to do the plastic knitting. So this is where you need your plastic bags and your knitting needles and some scissors. So I'm going to switch my camera now so that you won't see me, but you'll see my table and hopefully what I'm actually doing. Okay, so I'm going to move this out of the way.
And I said in the attendee pack when I sent that out that these sessions are all being recorded. So even if you haven't got your knitting needles ready, you'll be able to come back and view what Kirsty's doing. Yeah.
Great, excellent. All right, so here we are. These are some other things that I have been knitting, so just before we start. So these are sort of works in progress. I'll try and get this so that the camera sees it properly. So I've sort of stuffed some bags in here to give it some form, but this is using, you know, the three, like you would normally use socks, knit socks rather, with these three sort of needles to make a circular pattern, or you can use circular needles. So I'm just kind of experimenting with the different colours and the different types of plastic that you actually see there. So the pink is actually a potato bag. This colour here is actually from corn thins. So I'll just grab, so this sort of thing here, so the corn thins. So when you cut that up and knit it, it kind of looks like that. And that's a different type of corn thin down there. I can't remember what the yellow is or something, and white's just the normal sort of plastics. And I've also been doing things like this, sort of experimenting with different knitting kind of stitches to get various forms coming out. And this is the ironed one that I showed you in the presentation. So that's what that actually came out looking like. So why don't you get your plastic bag? Now, if you've got a crunchy plastic bag, so these are the sort of lighter weight ones like this, they are easier to knit with. So if you've got something like that, the shinier ones, like the corn thin one, are quite good to work with, but they do get a bit sticky when you cut it up. Probably most people will have these types of bags. So your Coles or your Woolworths type of bag that, you know, they say are reusable. Yep, they are, but not forever. So get whatever plastic bag you have to knit with, and when you've got it, I'll do it. I might use this Coles bag because that's probably what most people will have. So
are there any bags you don't recommend? Like, are there any that just is pointless to try and use because they'll just break too easily?
Not really. Most of them are pretty okay. It's really how thinly you cut it. So if you actually do have a plastic bag, the more finer one like this, if you cut the plan too fine, then it will start to break. So you do need to be careful of that. But generally it's okay. The only ones that are probably not that good to use are the biodegradable bags and the degradable bags. So I'll tell you the difference between them, because that's a really important point actually. So I don't have any to actually show you, unfortunately, but most of the plastic bags you find are this type of plastic, which is, I think it's an HDPE, high density polyethylene. And all plastic will break down after a while. So, but most of them will break down over hundreds, if not thousands of years, but they will never break down into biological components again. They'll break down into really, really fine particles, and that will get into the environment, and it will stay there. And that's why we're finding these really fine particles of plastic in the Antarctic. They're microscopic particles of plastic. So all of them will break down over time, and that's important to remember. But obviously we've seen those photographs of animals getting stuck in plastic bags, thinking that they're jellyfish and eating them, and then swallowing and choking on the plastic bags because they do take so long to break down. So what the plastic bag manufacturers decided to do is, because there was so much bad press around, you know, those types of photographs, that they would make a degradable plastic bag. Now, what that means is it degrades, but it degrades a lot more quickly than other plastic bags, like the plastic that I showed you in the screen that I made, when I left it out in the sun, it broke down into this really fine powder type of plastic. So that means it turns into this microscopic particle, or to much, much smaller particles, much, much quicker. Some of them break down in sunlight, some of them break down in water, but most of them are designed to break down in sunlight. So those are the degradable ones. And they have been posed as being better than the more popular type of plastic bag. But I don't think that is correct, because it's actually infiltrating into our environment at that particulate scale much, much quicker, and it's much harder, obviously, to gather that plastic up than it is, the more solid plastic. And then you've got biodegradable plastic. Now that is a completely different type of plastic. The first two plastics I've been talking about are all made from, the base material is petroleum, so it comes from the oil industry. Biodegradable plastic is made from a completely different material. It's actually made from plant-based materials such as potato starch or corn starch, those types of materials. So when you buy something that's biodegradable, it's designed to degrade, but when you put it in your compost and so forth, it actually goes back to the nutrients that you can actually use in your compost and then grow further plants from. So really, really different, and it's really good to be mindful of those three different types of plastic. Obviously, the sort of more normal types of plastic come in various forms, as we can see, the thicker forms, the thinner forms, and different types of a plastic itself. But as far as knitting is concerned and using plan, any of those are okay. I'd be more wary of the degradable ones, either the degradable ones or the biodegradable ones, because they will deteriorate quicker and your knitted piece will deteriorate, as I found out in my screen. Okay, so thanks for that question, Kathy. That's good. Right, now what we need to do now with our plastic bag to start forming it into plan is to get our scissors and to cut off, like with this particular one, to cut off that really thick plastic and the handles at the top. So we're going to get our scissors and just cut that top bit off. So that becomes a bit of waste, unfortunately. Once you get a bit more experience, you probably can do something, cut that up and do something with it. I tend to do that, but at the moment we're going to class that as waste. Now there are two ways that you can actually create your plan. One way is by creating loops and joining them together. Another way is to actually create one continuous strand. Now, I'm going to show you both ways. So I'm going to start with the looped one, because that does tend to be more popular with people, because it is quicker to actually do. So with our plastic bag like this, we're going to cut the bottom off the plastic bag, and again try and get that as neat as you can, and then just cut the bottom off. Doesn't matter which plastic bag you've got, you just don't want that bottom bit, so you can cut that as near to the edge as you like. So cut that bottom off. Then we'll just go back to the top here. And what we're going to do, excuse me, is cut a series of loops that are about 1 centimetre wide. So you can see there on the screen, it's about 1 centimetre wide. And we're just going to go across. I didn't do a very straight cut in the first place, so this first one's going to be a little bit wonky. That's okay. So, and then cut a few of these and I'll show you what to do. Okay. Hoping this, I'm looking at what I'm doing and trying to look at the screen at the same time to see that I'm still in picture. If I go out of picture, so you'll have to tell me.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
And if anyone's having any problems with this, just yell out.
Looks pretty straightforward, cutting into the plastic bag.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just cut one more, I think.
How long does it tend to take you to knit some of the, not the one with the huge needles you were showing, but the more basic ones?
Look, it really depends on the type of plastic, the size of the needles, what I'm knitting. But the little phone cases that we're going to knit today, because you've got to factor in the actual cutting up as well, but they probably take 3 to 4 hours, I guess, when you sort of think of the cutting up and the knitting itself. So we're not going to finish them today. This is more just sort of setting you up with some ideas. So what you should end up with are these loops. So you've got these loops here, and hopefully they're all about the same sort of thickness, and they will be the same sort of length. Now, to make this type of plan, grab one in each hand, then put the thread one or loop one through the end of the other. Grab this end of your right hand loop. So you've got that through, you can see like that. Grab this end and then thread it through the top of itself, if you like, through here. And then pull tight, and then you've got one continuous strand. So I'll show you that again. So you've got your left hand, got the loop here, got the right hand loop here, put the right hand through the top loop of the left hand, pull that through just a little bit. So you've got your loop like that. Then get the end and push that through the top of this loop and then pull it tight as such. So then you start getting this long thing. So I'll do that again for the last one. So left hand loop through and then through the top and pull tight. And hopefully that's sort of, sometimes you'll find that you get a bit of a one loose bit and one tight bit. So just sort of loosen it up and pull it tight again so that they're both of the same length. Sorry, I was looking at myself in the camera to see what I was doing and I didn't catch that. So what you've got now is the start of some plants. I just got that together, and that's your that's a thread that you can a yarn that you can start working with. So that's one way. I'll show you the other way quickly, and then I'll show you, we'll start some knitting. So the other way, which is much slower, so that's the quicker way, but you get quite a chunky piece of yarn and you get those sort of knots obviously in between. And and sometimes, particularly with the finer knitting work, you don't want those knots and you want the actual plant to be a lot finer. So to do that, it's a much slower process. What you'll be doing is basically it's like peeling an orange with the plastic bag. So you sort of start the cut, and then you're just doing it singly. So when you actually, sorry, my camera's, when you actually get going, you don't even need to sort of cut. You just sort of, I'm trying to do this upside down, but you just kind of let the scissors kind of glide through. You don't really need to cut. You can just sort of glide it through, but you just keep on going around and around, trying to keep it obviously to the same thickness, and it's just like peeling an orange. Obviously where you start, you'll get a bit of a thicker bit there, you can see, and so you just keep going around. And then obviously you'll get a much finer, oops, here we go, a much finer yarn. Obviously I haven't done that very well because I wasn't looking at what I was doing, I was looking at the camera. But you can get a very fine yarn from that. And I'll just show you, like these are some other ones that I've done. So this one is using a sort of more crunchy type one. This is a green one. That's a thicker style, but this one is very fine. So I'll get rid of some of these things. So this one is very fine. So you can get it really, really fine and delicate to do some of those more delicate things. And the thing that I really like about plastic, the good thing about plastic, and one of the things that, you know, when the plastic was came into popularity, one of the things was that it actually comes in so many bright colours, and all of those colours are obviously in the packaging that we use and where these things are coming from. So I'm just putting here some of the brighter sort of colours that you can find in the different, and so you can make a whole assortment of different colours, things from all of these different colours. Right, so that's making your plan. Is everyone, I hope everyone's okay with that. It's hard to tell when I don't have that interaction, but hopefully everyone's okay with that stage of it. Now I'll just show you.
There hasn't been any questions so far, so I guess we can assume people are okay.
Yeah, that's good. Hopefully I'm not going too quickly or too slowly. Let me know if you want me to speed up or slow down.
People, I'm not sure how many people are actually doing it at the moment too. I don't know if anyone wants to indicate if they're actually following Kirsty at the moment or just watching so that you can do it later. Might be a good idea to see if anyone's actually doing it while you're showing them.
Yeah, that would be good to know. Yeah, that would be good. This is actually one of the pieces that was made from the Knit Squared thing at Junction Art Festival in Launceston. So this was made from the looped method that I showed you. So that thicker method, so the looped method, and that's what you kind of end up with. So something that's quite chunky, and this is all made from the Coles bags and the Woolworths bags. So it's got quite a lot of, you know, thickness to it. You could, people have made these things into doormats or bath mats, probably not as good for a bath mat, but definitely is good for a doormat, or mats for their animals. Obviously, you know, if you wanted to, you could make it into a picnic rug. You know, you can make obviously, you know, it's foldable and malleable. You can make them into all sorts of different types of things. So you could close that off and make it into a wine cooler, perhaps. You know, if you put a bottom to it, you know, you could actually make it into a wine cooler. So that's the sort of more chunky one. And for the phone covers, I use a much finer one. So that's where I'm using the much finer types of plan, and that's where I am actually using a single rather than a double type of yarn. So if people are following along,
It appears most people are watching, Kirsty, from the chat that I've just got back.
Oh, okay.
But
So
there might be people, yeah, so far most people indicated they're watching it.
Okay, all right. Well, what I thought I would do now is just go through the knitting process. For those of you who do know how to knit, that's obviously an advantage. Does anyone want to know how to knit? I must say too that it's much, much harder to learn to knit using plastic than it is to learn to knit using wool. So if you're new to knitting, I would suggest you actually start to learn to knit using wool and then come back to the plastic. But you can, obviously learn to knit with the plastic as well.
Do you suggest any good YouTube channels that might have knitting?
Look, I don't have any recommendations, but there are hundreds of YouTube. If you look up Learn Knitting, you'll find heaps and heaps of them. So it's very easy to find them. So what I thought I would do first up is just on these bigger needles. Is just to cast on. So for those of you who don't know how to knit, so I've started this process up, and I must say, for those of you who are going to do this as a project later on, be patient with the plastic, particularly if you're already a knitter, or even if you're a new knitter. Be patient with the plastic, because you'll find that the first couple of rows, like the actual casting on and the first couple of rows, tend to be quite stiff and difficult to do. But once you've got onto the second or third row, you'll find it's much, much easier. So just be more patient with the material than you would with wool. So you can see here I've cut up an old Woolworths bag. I haven't done the double sided. This is just a single strand rather than the double strand. This is one I've started just to show you. So there I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches on here at the moment, and I'll show you just okay, I'll get a bit closer here. So I cast on at the back of the stitch. So you actually put your, working backwards here. So you put your needle in at the back, and then you get your thread, push it around and through the actual knitting needles until it kind of pulls through. And then what you're doing is you're pulling this stitch here. Oh, it's hard to show. Pulling that stitch there through and underneath and over, and that's your next stitch. And then you've got to pull that onto this left-hand needle, so from the right-hand needle. So I'll show that again. Push your needle in through the back of the last stitch. You get your plan, wrap it around through, and then you're pulling that stitch there under, through, until you've got a loop. You get that loop, you pull it onto the other needle, and then you pull it slightly tight. And this is where the trick is with the plan. Don't pull it too tight. If you're already a knitter, and I tend to still do this with the plastic, because when you're knitting wool, you knit quite differently. Don't pull it too tight. Try and keep it loose without being too loose. So I'll just do another one here. And
And you
then,
can also make the mistake when you knit of making it too tight, can't you? And it's really difficult then. I know with wool,
yes,
sometimes you can make it
yes,
way, the tension, it's called the tension.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with the plastic, it's better to keep the tension quite loose rather than tight, until you get more used to it, and then you can experiment a bit more. So, so I'm just going to leave it with those particular stitches. So
How many do you tend to cast on, Kirsty?
well, for the phone, because I'm using the bigger needles here, so I've got, I think these are about an 8mm, 9mm size needle. These ones, I don't have a. They're really old. They don't have it. They don't have the size on it, but they're about 8 or 9mm. So I probably 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I've got 11. I might make one more stitch. So do 12 stitches for a larger one like this. For the smaller one, so for the finer one, I have 15 stitches. So for this size, I use 15 stitches with the finer, and I use a different size needle. I use a 4mm size needle. So with the finer one. So you get that kind of gauge with it. So I find that a really, really good to use. But you can go to 3.5mm or 4.5mm. You probably need to experiment yourself with your own style of knitting.
We've got a
So
question here from Kathy M again. Can you use plan with any knitting pattern?
I think so. Yeah. I've been experimenting with lots of different stitches to see how they form with the use of plastic. The only problem is your tension will be vastly different for a particular pattern. So if you've got a pattern that's asking for an 8-ply wool, you would need to do what's called a tension sample to really see what the tension is in comparison to the actual pattern. But the actual stitches, yes, you can use any of the stitches. It's really just using another material for knitting with. But yeah, because knitting patterns are very precise with the ply of knit and the size of needles, translating it directly would be difficult, or is difficult. But it's just a matter of just playing around and finding out how the tension differs to the pattern.
Has anyone written a book on how to knit with plastic?
Not that I've come across.
Oh, well, there you go. Everybody, we can start.
Yeah,
This might be a huge growth area.
Yeah.
This is getting our freelancing brains into gear, isn't it? And finding a new way to make money.
That's right. That's right. So what I thought, because this is quicker, I'll do a couple of rows. So now to actually knit, it's very similar to what we were doing, but we don't take the stitch and transfer it from one needle to the next. So you put to just do a knit stitch, you put your knitting needle in the back of the stitch like that. You wrap the thread around like you were doing before. You pull it through just like you were doing before, and then, but you pull this stitch now off and leave it on this stitch. So I'll just go through that again. So you put this is where I've gone too tight. I can't get my needle in. So you put your needle in the stitch to the back. So you got this needle now to the back of this needle. Pull your plan around. You're pulling that stitch then through and up and then over. So stitch in, around, through and over.
How difficult is it when you drop a stitch? I know one of the things that can drive you a little crazy is when you drop a stitch further down in your rows and you've got to try and retrieve that stitch. What's it like with
necessarily. I think it's probably similar to you know, to using wool. I haven't found it any more or less difficult, but then I've been knitting since I was 5 years old, so I don't tend to have that problem anymore. I would have when I was younger, but so
knitting had a revival, didn't it? About 15 years ago, there was all these knitting clubs that started up. I don't know if they're still going, but people were rediscovering knitting.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's quite as popular as it was. There's a lot of yarn bombing too, if you've heard that term.
No.
People were knitting up covers and things for all sorts of urban
oh yes,
features.
I have heard of it. Yes.
Yeah. So you'd see bollards and things wrapped in knitting, and so it makes them really colourful and playful. And I always thought that, I never did it myself, but I always thought that plastic is a much better material to use for that. It's more weatherproof than the knitting. But the QV Mag here in Launceston, I was part of a big yarn bombing exercise for an exhibition that they were having for a person called Marjorie Bly. Marjorie Bly was one of the first, I think, plastic yarners, or planners in Australia, if not the world, back in the 1950s and 60s. She didn't waste a thing. She was a Tasmanian, and she made heaps of different knitting products with all sorts of things, including plastic, nylon stockings, cotton, all sorts of things that she would make into a yarn and then knit with and knit into a particular type of product that she used in the house. So there was a big exhibition of her work at the QV Mag. Unfortunately, with COVID-19, I'm not sure if it has now come down or not, but we knitted up all of the pylons at the front of QV Mag and covered them with knitting. There's about 100 women who were busily knitting for that exhibition to cover the pylons out the front.
So what I like about knitting though too is it's a very communal activity, isn't it? You can chat away and knit, and
yes,
yeah, it's really good to, or even just relax with sitting in front of the TV or whatever. It has a rhythm to it that's almost meditative sometimes.
It is. I find it extremely relaxing. And when I'm not knitting, when I'm watching the TV, for example, and I'm not knitting, I get really frustrated. It's like, I can't sit there and not do anything while I'm watching the TV. So I always have some sort of project going. So this is I'm sort of whizzing through this now. This is only using the knit stitch. So those of you who are knitters will know that there is another stitch called a purl stitch, which gives you this kind of form. What I'm doing at the moment is just only knit stitch, which gives you this kind of more bobbly form. So this is just a knit stitch, which is this one. And this is using a knit and a purl stitch, and I'll show you how to do that in a sec. So this will be quite a bobbly type of phone cover.
So we've gone just over an hour, Kirsty. Okay. I was wondering whether people wanted a break or whether they were quite happy to keep going. We could always have a break for about 5 minutes. People can have a stretch. We've got to remember our OH&S, occupational health and safety.
Yep, I think
Not
maybe
sitting in front of computer screen.
5 minute break.
Yes. Do you need a break yourself, or you're going to keep knitting?
No, I'll probably, because we won't get this finished. So I just wanted to get people started.
Right.
And just, go through the process, and then I can show them the other things that we're going to make out of repurposed materials as well in the last hour. Unless people would like me to finish this knitting, or you can post on the
chat.
On the chat. So the other two things, just to let you know, the other two things that I am wanting to show you is how to make a bag out of an old t-shirt. You can also make yarn out of t-shirts, and also to make gift wrap out of the old pillow slips and so forth.
Right. Okay. Well, why don't we have 5 minutes then in case people need to go and find an old pillow slip or some t-shirts. How does that sound with everybody?
That's weird, isn't it? I think that sounds good to me. So
yep, people are saying good. All right, so everyone's saying yep. Okay, great. They're all coming in. Sounds all right. So is 5 minutes? 5 minutes. Everyone happy with 5 minutes to see if they can find a pillow slip or grab a cup of tea or feed the animals? My cat was meowing before. I don't know if you heard it, wanting to be fed. So go and take 5 minutes, and we'll come back at about 4:16.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Kirsty, I'm just going to take back the share screen for a sec to pause the recording, and then we can start it again when people come back. Okay, Kirsty, I just temporarily took back hosting so I could stop the video, but I will put you back as host.
Okay, great.
Make host, here we go.
Okay, terrific. Right. Well, hopefully everyone had a nice little break. Would people like me to show you knitting in the finer plan as well, or are you happy with just what I've shown you with that?
A few attendees are probably still hunting for their t-shirts or making a cup of tea, but I would imagine it would probably be a good thing to show the next thing. So
go on to the next one.
Yeah, to go on to that. That if anyone disagrees, please put in. Oh, okay, we've got a question here. Kirsty, I have a lot of old pillowcases and I'm wondering if I can use these to knit, crochet a floor mat, or do I have to use stretchy t-shirt material?
No, you don't need to use stretchy t-shirt material. Actually, I'll show you what I've been doing, some experimenting myself with using different textiles. I just got to lean across. Take my been connected to the devices here.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll show you what I've been doing. I made out of old towels. So these are old. This is an old towel that I cut up, and I made a bath mat. I knitted that into a bath mat. So just a square sort of format bath mat. So that's just making old towels. But the problem with the towel is you can see when you cut it up, it does have those little it does fray at the ends quite easily. And so even when you knit it up, it does tend to still have those sort of loose threads. But if you're happy to put up with that, it actually makes a really good bath mat because it's nice and thick, and especially on winter days like now, it's really nice under your feet. So that's just using old towels. I haven't actually used sheets, but you can. I'm absolutely sure you could use an old sheet. What I have been working with though is this material. Now you can see there it's got Launceston City Central. These are old banners that Launceston donated, Launceston City Council donated to me when I had the bye-bye shop, which was something that I did for my PhD in Launceston, the pop-up shop. And what I've done with that is I've done the same sort of process. Where am I? And I cut it into a yarn, so you can see that that's probably about 2 centimeters thick, and then using a crochet hook, so you can see that's quite a big crochet hook, that's 10 millimeters. I've been crocheting that into a circular mat. So just by just a normal crochet method, you know, going into, I'll just show you what I do here. So just go into the next hole. I haven't been working on this for a while. And then just crochet that, just pull the things through, and just keep doing that process. So you can see that I haven't kept the tension. That the tension is the thing with the mats. You've got to keep increasing. If you don't keep increasing, he starts to sort of do that and starts to kind of make a curly sort of pattern. So that's why I stopped at the, because I hadn't been increasing properly enough. So, but that's an ongoing project that I'm doing using old banners from the local council, and obviously they got hundreds of them. This is not obviously a cotton, no, it's a polyester material, but you could use cotton, absolutely. You could use cotton from an old sheet or something. And the other thing that I'll show you is this. This is something one of my students actually gave me. It's a piece of jewelry that you wear around your neck, but this is made from old t-shirts. So it's just cutting up a t-shirt. When you cut it up, it naturally kind of does this curling thing because of the type of material it is. So you can see, if I sort of pull that apart, you can see that that's probably a centimetre or maybe a centimetre and a half wide, but it curls itself up to form something that's probably more half a centimetre. And then that forms a yarn in itself. But this person has obviously just pulled it together into loops and then looped the end of it, and then you wear it as a necklace. So yes, you can, yes. No problem. I just saw your answer there, Kathy. That's good to see. Now, the other thing before we go on to the other materials, if I'll just show you how I finish off the little phone covers. So this is my my most recent one that I currently use. It is starting to fall apart a little bit and needs a little bit of repair. But you can see that, you know, if you are a knitter, you know, you could do things like change the colours, and you know, you get all these different sorts of patterns from the different colours that you could get. And I do find that I need to have a bit of elastic. This elastic needs replacing, but you need to have a bit of elastic to go around the top. And I just stitch that in when I stitch the cover up to keep the phone in place, because it can fall out otherwise. But I've been using different forms of these because they do fall apart after a while. Once they fall apart, now that we've got plastic recycling with the Red Cycle system in Coles and Woolworths, you could just take that down, take the elastic band off, but take that down, put it in the recycling, and that can be recycled into a new material.
I imagine it makes a great gift as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's cheap. You don't need to buy any materials, which is great.
So it's just your time,
It's
the
just
amount
your
of time it
time.
takes. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
people like personalised presents like that anyway, don't they? Something a bit different and something you've taken the time to make yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And you could do little novelty things too, like this, which, can I show this? This is for the
Oh, the
prize.
prize, yes.
Can I show that?
Yeah, of course you can.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a prize for the competition that we're running for the festival that we're announcing at Virtual Drinks.
So this is something that I have used, a traditional pattern. So this was a pattern for forming leaves and roses. So that was from a traditional wool knit pattern, and I just used plastic as another material. So you could create these sort of really unique little novelty things. You could even make something like that into a brooch if you wanted to. I've still yet to sort of stitch these together for the prize, so it's just a little novelty prize. And that red around there, that sort of very solid red, that was from an old plastic table cover, that you get for parties and things like that. So that was that. This in the inner circle, I think, was a oh, now I can't remember. I think it was potato or something bag. And then this is using the crisps bag. I think they were all crisps bags. I did a talk for my sister's preschool kids, and made them all little bangles, to take with them. So I just knitted up these little plastic arm bagels. You know how that kids love those little things. So knitted those up. So there's lots of little things that you can do as well for gifts and things for people. Now, before we change materials, oh, that's right, I was doing this, wasn't I? I want to show you something else, but with the actual phone cover, to stitch it up and to keep it pure with the use of the plastic, what I do is I get the plant that I've made, so the finer sort of plant like this, and I just get a darning needle. So just an ordinary type of darning needle, and just cut off a length, obviously, of the plant. Thread your needle with it. Sorry. This is the way I do it. Just makes it easier than trying to thread it like a piece of cotton. And I've obviously, this is an old one of my phone covers, so I unpicked it to show you. So just put them face to face so that they're inside out. And I've already started stitching up this edge. That's the rest of the old yarn there. But basically, you just do an overstitch with the plastic yarn. So you can just pull it through. Obviously, if you want to put a knot in the end, and then just overstitch it like so. So the whole thing then is made from plastic. You're not adding another material, because one of the problems with recycling, or particularly recycling, is that materials get mixed up. And when they get mixed up, so adding like cotton to plastic, for example, it means that it can't be recycled in the recycling bin, because there's a contaminant in the plastic. So by keeping it all plastic, and all these plastic bags can be recycled together in the current recycling system, and so you just keep on stitching it up as such. And then when you turn it inside out, once you've finished, you turn it back the right way up, and you can see that it just forms a a normal kind of edge to stitch it up. But that's, I think, a really good tip, is to actually keep the materials the same. Don't add cotton or wool or something to stitch it up. Just use your plan and a darning needle and stitch it up as you would any other piece of knitting. So hopefully, are there any questions on the sort of little phone cases that you might want to ask me before I just quickly move on to another example of plastic? Just press the space bar if you want to say something, because there's not that many people there. So, okay. Look, the other thing that I wanted to show you is, again, something that my students have done. This is my interior design students, and I was getting them to think about how to use different materials, as well as understanding how carpets are made. So I was asking the students to actually make a carpet out of a repurposed or recycled material. And you can just see, sorry, here you can see the actual method that the student used to actually make this. And so she was also trying to replicate a cut pile twist technique using plastic. So this is the technique that she used, and it is amazing. You can see my hand sort of rubbing. It's really dense and thick type of material. You could see on the back how she's threaded it through. If you had the patience, this would take a long time. So if you had the patience to do something like this at a bigger scale, it would be quite an incredible material, I think, whether it be used for flooring or something else. So it's only, as I said at the start, it's about curiosity, and if you're just tapping into your curiosity and asking the question, could I do this? Excuse me. Sorry, I do actually have a chronic cough. I'm not I'm not COVID-19, and not that it would worry you, safe distance, but I'm not ill. I just have a thing. Okay, now I think what I'd like to do next is the t-shirt example. So I've got an old t-shirt here from my union days at UTAS that I don't want to wear anymore because it's irrelevant anyway, what this was all about. So if you find an old t-shirt that you just don't want to use anymore, that's really good for this. And what I'm going to show you, I'll just take this away for a sec. What I'm going to show you is how to make a bag. And I'm going to show you two different ways. So this one, it's hard with this camera. So this is, you can see it's got, this is the handles at the top. So the two handles and then the bag. So it just forms. Unfortunately, it's really hard to show you with way. I might just swap the camera across just for a second.
We get a bit of an idea, I think.
Yeah,
they were the handles, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So the way that we do it, and why I asked you to bring a bowl, I probably should have said plate. But anyway, I've got a bit of cardboard here. So what we're going to do, so you need your cardboard, your t-shirt, scissors for cutting fabric, and if you've got a needle and thread, you can, I'll show you two methods for actually stitching up the bottom. So what we're going to do first up is to actually cut off the arms, because they're actually going to form the handles. Now there are two ways that you can cut off the arms, and we'll probably need to turn this inside out, I'd say. So we'll turn this inside out. So it's actually, I find this such a shame, these sort of more promotional type t-shirts, because the material is really good material. and yet, you know, you only want to wear them once, really. And I hate wasting these sorts of things. I've got quite a few of these sort of promotional type t-shirts. But
well, they all become bags, then they're useful.
Yes, exactly. And actually what I'm wanting to do with them is to make them into the yarn that I was telling you about, and actually stitch that into a new t-shirt. So knit it into a new t-shirt. So that's one of my coming projects.
That could be a slogan. Knit it into a new t-shirt.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so now there are two ways that you can do this. You can either cut to the right-hand side of the seam here. Now, what that will do, it will actually give you a bit more strength in the actual armhole, but it does sort of create. It's not as neat. But what you can do if you're a sewer is that you could actually, you know, just then turn that into a seam and keep that as for the strength. So we're going to cut. I'm going to do that. So cut on the right-hand side of the seam to sort of keep the seam so that we've got a bit of strength. Okay, so that's one armhole done, and then turn it around and do the other armhole. I probably should have ironed this before I started, shouldn't I? Anyway, it's okay.
I don't iron anything. I hate ironing.
Oh, so do I. I very rarely
Horrendous.
Iron. Yep. It's a rare day when I actually iron. Okay, so now now you might be thinking, oh, now we just created waste. Well, we have, but you can actually turn these into pockets to actually put on your bag as well. So we'll have a look at how we can do that a bit later. Okay, so what you should have ended up with is a nice bruiser t-shirt, you know, like what are they called? You know, those guys who walk around with the cut off t-shirts. So, and you might need to tidy up the edges a bit. So you can see here that I haven't done a very good job of, because I did it right through the two. So you might just need to, sorry, move the camera away. You might just need to tidy up some of these edges here. Now, as I'm doing this, I just want to talk to you a little bit about textiles, because reusing textiles is a really, really important thing to do. The textile industry is one of the worst industries when it comes to pollution and waste. Throughout the whole process of making textiles, whether they come from cotton or whether they come from wool or whether they come from petroleum, it is a really, really notorious industry for pollution, toxicity, waste, and all sorts of problems. So when we are thinking about buying clothes, we should be really thinking twice about what we're buying and why we're buying it. And I'll say a bit more in a second after we get through this next step. So just move my computer away a bit here. Right, so we've got this sort of muscle man t-shirt happening here now with the arms that are cut off. And now we need to create these handles that are looking less like the top of a t-shirt. So that's where we need our plate, or you could cut out a piece of cardboard as I have. Now you've got to ask me how big that is, and I can't remember, but I think it is about 20-25 centimetres, and my tape measure, of course, I'd have to, but yep, I'm pretty sure that's 25 centimeters. So that's 25 centimeters across. Now, you can make this as big or small as you like, depending on the size of the t-shirt and depending on the size of the handles that you're wanting to do. So what you do is you put your circle so that the center line of the circle sort of is in line with the with the top of your t-shirt, so on the seams of the t-shirt. Now I think with this t-shirt I might need to make this a bit bigger, because when I look at the sample one that I have here, you could see that no you can't, you can see that this is the top seam, the shoulder seam, and it's only about 5 or 6 centimeters wide. So that forms quite a nice handle and a nice big open sort of form for the neck of the bag. So we might need to make this a bit bigger for this t-shirt, but you get the idea. So then you get a pencil, and of course I'm going to have to just put this away just for a second. I'm just going to be gone for a second. I need to get a white pencil. Just a sec.
Does anyone have any questions while Kirsty's gone off to get her pencils? Has anyone made any of these before? I've seen some of these t-shirt bags. I haven't made one myself. Just asking people, Kirsty, if anyone had made something similar to this before.
Oh, okay, great. All right, so I didn't find a white one, but I found a yellow one so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so, oops, put that back. Okay, so then we just go around the neck. Circle around.
Do you sell these things in your Etsy store?
Not these, no. I sell the gift wrap.
Right.
So that's but I'm in the throes of making different things at the moment.
I'll put the name of the store in the chat if you want to.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that would be great.
What's the address of it?
Well, the actual store name in Etsy is Rethink Studio, one word, because there is, ironically enough, when I chose the name, I did quite a bit of searching, but I chose the name quite a while ago. And ironically enough, in Etsy, there is another person who's called themselves Rethink, and they're making reusable gift wrap as well.
Oh, so, gosh. What are the chances?
Yeah, exactly.
There we go. I've just put it in the chat for everyone if they want to have a look.
Thank you. That's great. So this is, so you can see here now we've got this circle going around. So that's where we cut that to form the top of the bag. So I'll just, now again, I'll probably change this a bit later and make it a bit bigger, because I don't think that's going to be big enough, but I'll give it a try anyway, so you never know. So we'll go around. And cut off the neck. Right, so we can see, well, it might be okay. We can see that we're getting the start of the bag. As I said, I might make these straps a little bit smaller and make the opening a bit bigger a bit later on. Now, obviously the size of the bag is then going to be dependent on the size of the t-shirt itself and how long the t-shirt is. So this is quite a long t-shirt, so it's going to be quite a long bag, but that's okay. And there are two ways that you can do this. Obviously, you can just sew up the bottom edge of your t-shirt, and then just turn it inside out and you've got a bag. And that is what this one is. So I'll just take out the bits and bobs that I've got in there. And I did this by hand because I did this as a demonstration at a school a while ago. So you can just see that I've just basically just stitched up the bottom there. So you can do it by hand or you can do it by machine, whatever you feel most comfortable in using. So that's it, inside out. And then you just turn it right way up and you've got that bag. Now, another way of doing it, which you don't need any sewing skills for, and it's really simple and easy. Now, I'm hoping I'm going to get this right, I think, is that now you can mark on here if you like, if you want to get them all the same length. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So I'm going to make you're just actually doing ties at the bottom. So I'm just going to draw on there about 10 centimeters or so, just to sort of give me a bit of a guide. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut, sorry, get it in camera. I'm just going to cut in up to that line, say about 2 centimeters. Go up to the line. And then you do that for the whole length of your, whole width of your t-shirt. And then all you do is you take the two ends that you've on the corner. Obviously, the seam one you have to cut through the seam, and you just tie them in knots. So you just tie these together. So you've got one end and this end. Oh, sorry, wait a minute. The first thing you have to do is turn it the right way up. Sorry. So we'll pretend that we've done all of the fringe at the bottom there. Turn it back the right way. So we've got our emblem there on the thing. And yes, and then you tie up the two opposite sides. So I've got, there's the next one. And then the next one.
And that's quite sturdy, is it?
Not as sturdy as the, I'm getting confused. Not as sturdy as the sewn one.
Yeah, but it's still, if you're going to the beach or something,
yes,
you
exactly.
put your towels in. And,
yeah, exactly.
But not your fruit and veg.
Oh, no, you could probably do your fruit and veg too. It's more that you might, and so you end up with this sort of fringed bottom, and you can really play around with that as well. And, you know, it's just that small things might be able to fall through. And obviously, you know, the tighter you might want to tighten them, even, you know, do 2 knots rather than 1 knot. And you just end up with this fringed edge on the bottom of your t-shirt. And yeah, you can really play around with that as well. Like you can have really long fringes and be a real hippie, or you can have shorter ones, or you know, you can really play around with how you finish that fringe off. You might even decide that you want to, you probably could, in fact, do it on the inside and turn it inside out so that you don't have the fringes on the outside, but you'd have sort of a a sort of knotted type thing on the outside rather than the fringe if you did the knotting on the inside. So quick and easy. You don't need any sewing. You just need a t-shirt and some scissors, and then you're right to go.
Yeah, that one looks really easy to make.
It is really, really easy. So unfortunately, I don't have the fringed one to show you that's finished. But
so we've got about 10 minutes left before virtual drinks, Kirsty.
Really?
So yeah, it's gone pretty quickly, hasn't it?
Wow. Okay. Right.
Do we want some questions, or is there a couple of other things you want to show? Or?
Well, I was going to show the well, and don't forget you can make pockets out of the sleeves as well. So just cut the top off the pocket, stitch up the stitch up the bottom of the thing that can make the top of the pocket, and then you could just sew that onto your bag, and you've got a little pocket that sits on your bag. So that's what you can do with the sleeves. And I was going to say about the textile industry, they use heaps and heaps of even cotton and wool uses lots and lots of insecticides and biocides and all sorts of things to produce the actual material. The dyes use lots and lots of different chemicals. There's lots of waste in the actual textile industry, so lots of offcuts and waste, and of course there's lots of waste at the end of life as well. So even though you might think you're doing the right thing buying cotton and wool, unless you're buying organic cotton and wool, there's also a lot of environmental impacts that actually happen with the cotton as well. And as well as the wool. So be careful with what you're actually buying. Obviously buying secondhand is the best way to go because it's already gone through all of those processes and you're reusing things. So reusing things is the best thing. Recycling should happen right at the very, very end. Yes, hemp is a really good alternative to cotton and wool as well. Absolutely. Thanks for that, Kathy. Hemp grows really quickly. It doesn't need all of the chemicals and things that the other non-organic wool and cotton need, and obviously cotton uses heaps of water, and in Australia being the driest continent on the planet, why are we using a crop that actually needs heaps and heaps of water? So be really careful about why and where you're buying your clothes from, because yes, the textile industry is not a good one. I was going to show you just with your this is an old pillow slip, but we won't have time for me to go through to show you how to make a wrap with that. But basically, if you just cut up a sheet or an old pillow slip, and if you use pinking shears, so they're the scissors that create that serrated edge. That's all you need. You don't need to sew it up or anything. And just I use two different sizes for the wraps that I make. One's 34 centimetres square, the other is 56 centimetres square, but you can make them 40 and 60 centimetres square. And they do most size presents. And using the furoshiki method of actually wrapping just by knotting. You don't need any ribbons or any sort of accessories. And I've got on my Facebook page, I've got some little videos that show you how to actually do that very simply. I'm going to put more up too to show you different methods of that. So that's all you need. You just need a piece of material, and sheets and pillow slips are great because you get quite a large piece of material. Cut it up with some pinking shears into the square that you want, and there you go. You've got a really cheap and reusable form of gift wrap that you can use over and over again. The picking shear edge may fray a little bit over time, but it really doesn't fray that badly. If you're wanting a much finer edge, obviously sew it. And if you don't like the back and front, then you double side it, and you have back and front on that. Yeah, have a look. I'll have a look on my Facebook page for some examples of those. I haven't got them on Etsy yet, so I've only got my printed heirloom wraps on Etsy at the moment.
Is your Facebook page the Rethink one, Kirsty? Shall I put that up?
Yes, yeah.
I'll just Google that and grab that one.
At Rethink Studio FB. So that's my my Facebook page one. So they're only on Facebook at the moment, and they're obviously every single one of them is different because of the the nature of doing it. I'm not buying bulks of any materials. It's just the materials that I can find at op shops and places, or in bins and so forth. Seconds bins and whatever. So they're all individually made. They're all one-offs. Yeah, so sorry, we ran out of time at the end there. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to fill the time. So there you go.
It always goes a lot quicker than you think, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
Well, that was fabulous, Kirsty. I've just found, it's funny, I just typed in your Facebook page and it came up with that competition you were telling me about.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the other studio, but I've got your one here now. So I've just posted that.
Great, thank you.
So people will be able to find you both on Etsy and on the Facebook page.
Yeah. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, so people are saying thank you, and Holly's just said, yes, the textiles industry and considering how we purchase is really important.
Mm.
Exactly, yes, I've read some horrendous things about the textile industry.
Yeah, it's not good.
No.
It's just, I actually I have little rules for myself. So I will only buy 1 or 2 items per year if I buy at all, and I only buy them if I need them. And when I buy them, they have to come from either a reuse place, or I should put my other video on, a reuse, or they come from organic materials, or they're locally made. So if you really start to think about what you're purchasing when you actually purchase, because obviously reducing your purchasing is the first thing. Then secondhand, all those sorts of things is really good. But be careful. Some people fall into that trap of, oh, I can buy as much as I like because it's all secondhand. Well, no, you're still purchasing a lot. You're still consuming a lot. So it's reducing our consumption. That's really, really important.
All right. Well, we've got about 3 minutes till virtual drinks. I think you probably deserve a drink yourself, Kirsty.
Thank you.
I don't know if you've drunk your wine yet that came from Delmere. Right.
No,
okay.
it's in the fridge.
Some people did drink their wine, before virtual drinks, but yeah, I know. But we've got Fran Austin joining us soon in about 15 minutes, and she's the winemaker. So that will be fantastic to hear all about that process. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for giving up your Sunday afternoon to be with me in my workshop. Please get in touch with me either through Facebook or through Sue if you're wanting to know more. I'm more than happy to help.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Kirsty. That was very educational. So, I was very impressed with the bags. I was very impressed with how easy the bags were to make, actually. So I'm sure I'll try a few of those. Yeah,
they're great. And you can keep those logos, those sort of things happening as well, can't you?
Yes. I had a friend who used to wear the logo backwards and inside. Oh, did she do it inside out? I don't know. So you wouldn't see it anyway. So that was how she repurposed all those old t-shirts.
Good idea.
Yeah. So
there's actually a designer who does this really interesting cutting through the t-shirt. I should have looked. I just thought of him, but he's fantastic. If you can Google this guy who does this sort of slits through the t-shirt and then knots and ties it and does these incredible things. Like you would never think that was an old T-shirt. It was, you know, it looks like something that he designed. Does it so quickly. So
yeah, well, if you find it out, I'll put it in the post-festival
okay.
pack as a roundup.
Okay.
Because all of this is recorded, so I can include that with all the recordings.
Yeah, great. Okay, I will.
All right. Well, Kirsty, you go and have a break. And in about 1 minute, we've got virtual drinks starting. So go and pop open the
champagne and
the champagne. Oh, no, we're not allowed to call it that. Sparkling.
Oh, sparkling, yes, of
Yes.
course. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.